Hello and welcome to yet another Saturday with us here at Enterprise Television. It's Enterprise Weekend, by the way. I am Henry Igwibike. That's right. You can follow us on all our social media handles showing on your screen. Now, let's head out once into our main conversation for this morning. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu may be forced to return to Nigeria in a commercial plane as the presidential jets have developed faults in the Netherlands and are still being repaired.
That's right. Following his diplomatic engagement with Prime Minister Mark Rutte in Rotterdam, Netherlands, President Tinubu was reportedly forced to use a chartered plane to Saudi Arabia after his main presidential jet developed a fault and was taken in for maintenance.
It was reported that the second presidential jet he could have flown to Saudi Arabia for the World Economic Summit also developed a technical snag.
With the two aircraft grounded, the president's aides, ministers, and other government officials were equally forced to fly to the summit on commercial airlines, leaving the faulty jets behind.
It was expected that the jets would be ready to transport the president back home by the end of the summit, but the story is different. And with us today in the studios to do more and throw more light on the subject matter is Barrister Jimmy Appiah. He is a lawyer and a public affairs commentator. Good morning to you, Barrister.
Good morning.
Good morning, Barrister.
Welcome.
Good morning.
Happy weekend to you.
Yeah, I wish you the same.
All right, so let's get into the cracks of the matter here. At a time in 2024, when we all thought that we've gone past such stories making headline news, unfortunately in Nigeria, that is what we have before us. These are issues you don't see from other countries, more serious countries that is. And of course, that's what we're having. How shameful is this to our nation state, but most importantly to what we have today as the leadership of our country?
I want to get it within context. What is shameful? Is it the use of the probable use of commercial airline, or the use of the presidential jet, or the costs that we have spent in repairing fixing the presidential jets? Or is it the fact that the presidential jets are not, within use at this time?
Yes,
what is
the fact that we are often reactive to issues? In other parts of the world, you hardly would hear that a president who flew in his presidential jet is taking a commercial jet to another destination. These are things that shouldn't even make headline news in the first place. But in Nigeria, unfortunately, we often take reactive measures, even to things that bother us as a people.
Yes, the reason why it is so is because I think it's because there hasn't been a proper focus on the real issues that matter. I mean, today Nigerians are still queuing at the filling stations to get fuel. So those are the things that I expect. Today, the dollar exchange rate, dollar to naira, the naira keeps falling. The dollar keeps strengthening against the naira. So these are topical issues, and it has implication on our naira, on the cost of goods, because things will get more expensive because of importation, also because the country is not producing enough. So I think there's need for proper focusing on the issues. But again, this is an important issue because why is it somewhat an important issue? Maybe not top headline, but somewhat an important issue. When you take into cognizance the amount of money that has been spent in the past few years to purchase, to fix, and to keep these aircrafts running, it runs into billions, tens of billions. In the past 10 years, Nigeria has spent over 90 billion naira. In about 9 years, not even 10 years, Nigeria has spent over 90 billion naira to keep these presidential aircrafts, flying. We have about 10 of them. And still, these aircrafts, cannot function well. So you begin to wonder now we have about 10. Now, one 2, 3, 4, and the president requires only one aircraft, and still we can't get one functional amongst the 10, despite the fact that we've spent so much billions. Last year alone, in the budget of 2023, 13 billion was budgeted for the presidential fleet. 13 billion. Now, by November, another 12.7 billion was also budgeted for the same presidential fleet. That was in the supplementary budget. So you can then imagine, now we have not factored in that of the 2024 budget, which has already been, I didn't take that statistic. So when you add this up, you can imagine how much we have spent in putting these aircrafts running. And yet the president cannot still use them. It's unfortunate.
All right. Thank you so much, Barrister Jimmy Abia. Beyond speaking about what this portends or what this mirrors in terms of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's style of leadership, because as a leader, is more about what you do than what is said, so to speak. So this is a flagrant lackluster approach. We just, we are grateful that the fault that was detected was on ground. I'm beginning to imagine that we will lose our president and vice president in an air accident. We're grateful that didn't happen. So, but beyond the shame of the fact that leadership has been seen as being thrown to the wind in this case now, talking about the fleet, I understand that, what makes up the fleet of the president are quite old planes, so to speak, quite antiquated. Would you advise at this point that they sell off those planes that makes up the fleet and then get new ones, so that we don't get to say scheduled or unscheduled maintenance and then get to hear things like this?
Of course. It's the prudent thing to do. You don't need 10 presidential aircraft in a fleet in a country that that is struggling the way Nigeria is going through today. So you expect that sense should ordinarily prevail. I mean, if you've been using a car for some years, and every day at certain points, every day you have to take the car to the mechanic workshop. I mean, the right thing, the reasonable thing to do is to find a way to sell off that car, especially when you have 10. I mean, you have 10 cars and yet you can't use one. What would you do? You sell the 10 and maybe purchase another 2 that you can use reliably. So I would expect that probably the country, the government would be thinking in this regard, why don't we sell off these almost non-functional aircrafts and then purchase something that would be more useful to the president. Yeah, but about the talk about whether the president will take a commercial flight, no, it will not happen. Not this president. He won't take a commercial flight. It's not possible.
And of course, speaking of selling off, in 2023, that's last year, the Nigerian Air Force put up a Falcon 900B aircraft for sale, calling all interested persons to submit their bid for the purchase of that presidential aircraft, of course, which works in with your submission. But I'd love us to speak to the issue of our leadership style, especially in this country. The seat or the circle of the president is an institution, which calls for lots of intelligent people who understand how to run a government. But with what we have in Nigeria, do you think we have got that skill, that leadership dexterity to do what is needed in order for us to have functional leadership at the top, which eventually will trickle down to the bottom? Of course, you talked about fuel scarcity, which is still there. And these people are not even thinking about the economic consequences of some of these things. So speak to us about...
You see, the problem is that our education, and I've said this even while younger, I keep saying this, that the education we give to Nigerians is not functional education. We do not give them the most important aspects of education.
Which is
leadership. It's not taught in our schools the way it should be. Leadership is not taught. It's not taught. We do not teach business and entrepreneurship skills in our schools. Another important one. Then again, we do not teach security, self-preservation, self-protection, and also how to protect your own community and environment. We do not teach these things. These are the most important aspects of it can now branch out into so many other things. But if you take these three aspects, you will see that you raise functional humans who will function within a society. It's not bad, teaching students how to draw grasshopper and all those things. But I think that beyond that, it might be important, later in life, for people who are going into sciences. I'm not saying it's not important, but I'm saying that beyond that, it's important that we have a system that prepares them for the society in which they are going to function. Now, how does that affect Nigeria? Now, our leadership selection process has also been defective in the way we elect leaders, in the way people are thrown up into leadership. And what you have chaos everywhere, because you have leaders who have not been trained, leaders who have not been properly selected. So it rubs off on the society. Let me tell you one thing. There is no society in the world, okay, maybe a few, which are functional, that is functional, where leadership selection is not a major thing that is taken very seriously. Now, if you go to China, you will see the way they select their leaders. Long before a leader emerges, there's already a line of succession. Now, there's a training process through which people emerge. If you go to the UK, now it is from how you have functioned, you become the leader of the party, then from being the leader of the party that wins the general election, then so long before, there's a line of people that they are looking at who will become leaders. There's already a line of people. And then again, it is good to have universal suffrage where everybody can vote. However, in societies that function well, please check all the countries of the world that function well. There is always a way where that universal suffrage is tailored in order to ensure that those who understand governance, those who have major stake in governance, always have the higher prerogative in choosing the leadership. Now, let me explain to you how this functions. In America, they have a collegiate system in which no matter what you have voted, it goes through the college. If this college, the electoral college, and it was tailored based on interest. That's why if you come to company systems, people vote according to, apart from, the voting according to individual. There's also voting according to the number of shares, which is even more important in companies. Voting according to the number, the stake you have in the company. Now, if we tailor that, if you look at the UK, it's also a similar system where the party that gets majority, which has indicated the interest of the people, that they have protected the interest of the people, is able to now bring up the prime minister of the country. If you go to China, it's also the same thing. So I think Nigeria needs to retailor the leadership selection process, the leadership training process. These two things, if we can get it right. But this idea of where you are going to elect people. Now, let me tell you how it functions in Nigeria and why it will be difficult for us to get it right with this system. Now, you know that a larger number of Nigerians are less educated, maybe not educated. Now, what happens? This number of people do not understand their stake in governance and how government affects them. Now, these are the people who will collect the 2,000, but they have higher votes. They are the ones who have higher majority of the votes. You have even in areas where there is underage voting. These people do not understand anything about governance. They do not know anything about governance. But unfortunately, with the system we run in this country, they have more votes. They have more votes because they form the larger percentage of the number. So invariably, they are the ones who are going to pick a leader for you and I, and probably others who are even more enlightened, more informed, who have more stake in the country that we call our own.
Right.
So it is important that we retailor the way we select. It may look, maybe sound offensive to some people. It may also sound out of how does this guy say? I mean, I thought we were enjoying universal suffrage, but it is something that reasonable societies do, and it is something that we need to start thinking about how to do in Nigeria if we need to get leadership
exactly.
right.
Thank you so much, Barrister Jimmy Abia. I love your stance on what leadership should actually mirror. But let me take you back to 2020. It was in the news that President Buhari deployed presidential jets for lavish, private, extravagant wedding of Malami's son and dashed out COVID-19 presidential task force. But so this was, all over the place when it happened at the time. Bringing, I'm trying to tie in the fact that you spoke about leadership and the importance of having the right leaders in government. If the government is anything to go by in terms of listening to you on TV this morning, say, okay, let's sell off what we have in the fleet and then get new ones. If proper discipline is not infused, do you have any angst that will continue to see things like this play out? I mean, these are some of the reasons why we have the presidential jet in a moribund situation, so to speak. If we keep having, flagrant, extravagant parties, and then the president or whoever is there, the vice president packs their family, their cousins, their entire village to jet out to every part of the world, do you have fear that this may continue even in this administration?
Of course, we've seen it even under this administration. We've seen it where the president's children, have used presidential jets. So it's not something that you can't find in this administration. It's been going on, and this is the unfortunate thing: the fact that we formed the extravagant lifestyle of hangers-on, political hangers-on, and the family of whoever is in government. It happens not just at the presidential level, but even at the state levels. You won't be surprised that even the children of governors, not flying presidential jet probably, but they use official cars that are meant to be, reserved for the state, for government. They use official cars, they use official, paraphernalia of office. So this is something that where you have checks and balances, where you have a legislature that is alive to its responsibilities, where you have a functional society, these things cannot be tolerated. Right. But unfortunately, this is what we have going on in Nigeria. It's unfortunate.
It's very, very unfortunate. And lastly, let's just, before we coast home, let's talk about the implication of what has befallen us today when we look at it from the international, spheres. The dent this would have to the seat of the president at the COP28, when our president was speaking to the audience there. There was this viral video of the look from, the host and other dignitaries there, and it wasn't satisfying, which of course shows the little, perception they have for our leader. With what is happening right now, how bad is the situation when we look at it diplomatically?
Okay, maybe I'm not taking note about the particular video you're talking about. I know one where the president was speaking, but maybe I did not take note of this perception or the way the crowd, looked on. But it's important that whatever happens, the perception of the international community, about how the leadership in the country, is run. It plays a lot of role in terms of even investments, coming into the country, because where you find that leadership seems to be self-centered, leadership seems not to be working in the interest of the people. There's high corruption also. The ease of doing business is, getting more difficult. It's being stifled. Now, the impression of the international community is that whatever you're saying here is not the reality. You simply want to sound good. Now, especially also when they know about what happened in the last election, how the elections were won and lost, and some of the things that happened that an electoral body would go and, that the server of an electoral body, which they promised that it would function, couldn't function at the nick of time. When they hear these things, it paints us in a negative light. And this is how they will also, view the country, view the leadership of the country. So whatever you are saying will be viewed within that context, and they may not exactly take you serious with whatever, platitudes or shibboleths or whatever you're saying. It wouldn't make so much sense to them.
Very, very true. That's so said well. And this leaves us, with the question. A couple of months back, and the aviation minister was saying on a viral video marketing an aircraft brand. At a time when we felt that shouldn't be coming from the minister, and this, tells us. Just like our guest did say, the quality of our leaders and their intent in ensuring that what is done should be done well.
Henry, honestly, I think this is a catch-23 situation, catch-24 situation, and then it beats me when people like Jimmy Abia, whom will speak glowingly of what the solutions should be in our country, not coming forth to run for these offices to ensure that we have the right leaders in place. We just hope that Jimmy would have a change of mind someday.
Maybe someday.
Right, someday. Henry.
All right, so that's just the time we have for our show today. I'd love to say thank you, Pastor Jimmy.
My pleasure.
Thank you so much for coming.
Indeed, an incisive discussion and an interesting one.
Absolutely.
And I'd love to say thank you also for taking our time to be part of our show today. Please do well to visit our website at www.enterprisetvnews.com. Like, comment, and follow us on all our social media platforms at Enterprise TV S7. I am Henry Igwebike.
And I'm Chinyere Igweodu.
On behalf of the entire team, thank you for watching. Bye for us, and have a happy weekend.
Enterprise TV, a tradition of truth.